for this. And it's not for you, for me. Okay, so first quick hits. Vocab to begin.
Yeah.
How's vocab going?
Good. So I did two words yesterday and today to hopefully get us, on track.
Yep.
In terms of quizzes, this is probably in it. I just haven't looked through everything. Are those things that we print? Are they printed for us?
They will be, great question, they'll be in the front of your classroom tomorrow, ready to go for you.
Great.
Both the answer sheets and the quiz, hard copy of the quiz.
Beautiful.
I'm going to be sending out an email to the whole 8th grade team. It seems like there may be one or two words that are on the quiz that for some reason weren't included in the quiz sheet this week. Just cross it off.
Cool.
And if it gets to the fact that like you are looking at the quiz and you're like, this isn't what I did, it was our first week.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we're clear going forward what we need to do.
Okay.
And adjust. So the words...
How should we message to kids if it's like, this is obviously something we can't really hold you accountable for?
Say that it's a data collection for us.
Cool.
That it's not going to go into the grade book, and it shouldn't. And then for us moving forward, and for me, the implicit feedback that I'm getting from 8th grade is that we need increased clarity on the number of words and what those words are.
Yeah.
And so you can go on the Endeavor Humanities Ames calendar, and it's spread out. What I'm understanding from Megan and from a few others is like it looks like the 8th grade packet specifically, there's like one or two words that are out of sequence, potentially more.
Yeah.
I need to check in with Dennis by the end of the day today because he helped us make that packet to see what's going on there. And then I'll loop back to you.
Cool.
So the name of the game here is flexibility, and we'll course correct for next week.
Great.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what you should expect from me is clear communication for next week's vocab plan when I have an answer for it.
Yes, that sounds good.
Great. Other real quick hits. Sketch for next week's field trip. Are you good to go?
Yeah, it seems clear enough to me. Pretty
Great.
standard, yeah.
Great. Grade book entry, just keeping it on our radar. We had this in coaching last week, but first round of grades, 9/16, due 9/14. And
that would be like 2 per week prior to, I'm already
2
on
per
track.
week.
Cool. Is there like a push for a balance of effort and proficiency since we're 50-50, or is that not especially important right now?
Good question. I care about the proficiency for sure and getting those exit slips in. How are you grading for effort right now?
Homework, which has only been 3, so like 1 a week this point. That'll increase starting next week. And then effort has been involvement in class discussion, whether that's like active note-taking or like actively tracking, participating, associated with, their general effort, jump to itness, all that good stuff.
Okay.
Not associated with
How
grades.
often are you entering it?
I've done 2 of those grades, just to supplement. I've let them know kind of at the head of time, like today is an effort grade because we are doing more of a discussion-based
Sounds
class.
like you're in a good place with that. So
I'm not worried.
things in terms of ratio, I feel like what you've articulated is pretty much like what we should go for.
Cool.
So if you can keep on with that'll work.
Will do.
Well, right. Let's dive into this OBS.
Cool.
You saw the data that I sent over to you.
I did. I got it right here.
Cool. You can pull them up if you want, but we don't need to reference it right away.
Great.
I want to start by like regrounding us in those essential questions. We've been focused on focus and investment.
Yes.
Our students focus on the work from the lesson from start to finish, and our students would soon stay if they have the choice to leave. And like ultimately, like we set the goal of a 3 on classroom climate and 95% on task and 95% on habits. And we're making growth here.
Slowly.
I'm psyched for you, though, and I think there's, in particular, like a real win here on classroom climate, moving from a 1 to a 2, and I'm stoked on that. What do you feel was like the big difference this week in moving from a 1 to a 2 on classroom climate?
I think just clarity in my expectations and directions was hugely important. Even just like the posture checks, like I know kids are frustrated by that, but it's still our push and needed. But it is keeping kids. So many of them are just like, it's absent-mindedness right now, so it's just like, oh, that quick, like, oh, I got to get back in it. And I think just like trying to balance high rigor with like personality, just like keeping like silly moments when they can happen, keep them in, but like pushing the pace. The kids who like are excited by academics are like, I think really thriving on the fact that like, oh, we're going. This class is pretty nonstop. Time to get bored. So that's been a big push.
I completely agree, especially with the focus on calling for posture and the focusing on like correcting immediately before it gets too far. You give a really swift, quick correction to Jaden Reed, level 1, for not taking the posture whole group feedback, which was really strong. It didn't snowball to that like Brandon Rivera level 2 moment, and it felt more positive because it was swift, it was quick, and he took that feedback. Also, like, I agree with you on brisk pacing in the partner practice. When Caro and I walked in at the beginning of class, there were very few students that were off task because of the fact that they were engaged in high ratio student-to-student discourse. And like just peeping in and listening to different conversations. They were discourse-driven, evidence-based discussions of the document, so like kudos there. Where I want to dive in is going a little bit deeper in what you started to pull up around where we're starting to get traction on the clarity of directions. So I want to zoom in on thinking through specifically the document debrief. When you have a document up on the screen, you pulled kids back from a high ratio turn and talk, and you're giving a series of clear directions around eyes up, eyes down, pencils up, pencils down. Talk to me in those moments. What are the pros and the cons of giving students some autonomy and choice in that moment of what to do with eyes and hands?
Yeah, I think the cons, first of all, is it allows too much room for interpretation, perhaps, of kids who like, who can opt out, but maybe pretend like they're doing one or the other, or B, just like kids are unclear what's best for them at that moment. Like some kids aren't really sure of how they learn best, right? It's kind of a pretty high level thing to understand. So some kids like really want to get down what their partners are saying. Some kids really do better like tracking. So giving them that too much choice almost feels like, even though it's like high school ready, it's maybe a little too soon to release that. So I want it so badly that I like just need to let go of the fact that they're not ready. But pros are like for the kids who know how to make a decision, that can be really gathering new evidence, new ideas, pushing their own thinking. That's what they're going to be expected to do starting next year. So
I see in your directions in those moments where I think both of us want your classroom to be in like February, maybe January, with like getting them ready on some habits, classroom habits that are going to get them really ready for freshman year. They're not there yet.
Nope.
They weren't there that last year, the entire year. And so they need a lot more directives and coaching on what those skills look like. And so I want to zoom in on planning, clear MVP directions and narration to get it, with the hopes of like building out really tight routines for like that element. And so what we're going to zoom in on in terms of the TCP rubric is going after like tight routines, like based on the document debrief and off-task material behavior not having any material impact on classroom climate. So do you have your plans for, we can do this, let's do this for today's plan.
Great.
To start. And that is lesson, let me pull it up.
13.
Great. Turner
significance in the frontier.
Great. So, in yesterday's, I guess it was 2 days ago's observation, I heard a lot of things like you can hold your pencil in your hand or place it down.
Right.
Or you can track the screen or your page, or you can add to your notes, or think about this right now. So
Too many options.
So instead, I think what we would like to hear is something along the lines of place your pencil down, track the screen. Right now, silently add to your notes based on Brandon's response. So let's look at this close read doc. Where are you going to be pulling students' eyes out of text to ask back pocket questions?
Yeah, so let's on page, just go from the top.
Yep.
The bullet point 2, second paragraph, that last sentence, I'm going to have them basically deep dive. They're deep diving on that. So basically, pause, reread that last sentence to yourself, silently and independently. With your shoulder partner, turn and talk about what his perspective on slavery is compared to westward expansion. So that's like the deep dive question. They turn and talk. They're going to jot about it, and then we'll come back, and then that's part of the central message for that paragraph that we then take a hand for volunteer after turn and talk, because it is kind of heavy, and then we'll add to our notes together central message.
Great. So let's zoom in on the directions that you're going to give when you pull them back from turn and talk. Yeah. What's the first thing that you're going to say?
Voices off, track me. Usually we do a countdown for a turn and talk, so 3, 2, 1, 0, narrating in between.
What would you narrate?
Andrew's voice is off. Amaya's pencil is down. Besides, is tracking me.
Yeah.
Great. You get a chance to talk to your partner. Now let's. Well, I don't need to say that. Sorry. Amaya, share out what is Turner's perspective on slavery compared to westward expansion. Tracking Amaya. Tyrell's eyes are there. Elijah's eyes. Great. Go. Perfect. She said that Turner's perspective.
Pause, wait. In that moment, yes. You're turning your voice back on, and so you give an MVP direction to pivot back to you.
Yep.
So it's track me or track front. I'm going to name, like, that's my number one. Yep. That's I would say, like, the most frequently skipped MVP direction in my own classroom.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, throughout our school right now, the pivot back. And it has a big impact on posture, right?
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then they're staying off vision on side sitting.
Definitely.
So let's go back and do that again.
Yep.
What would it sound like?
Great. So everyone's tracking Amaya for her answer. Tyrell's tracking. David's tracking. The assessor's there. Great. Excellent. Agreed. Amaya, track me.
Yep.
The assessor's there. I have Amaya's eyes after sharing. Thanks. So, Amaya talked about Turner's perspective that slavery is less of an American identity than in westward expansion and the frontier. So, adding to our notes, your pen is in hand. Possess picked his pen up. Tyrell's got his pen in his hand. Adding to your notes what I'm writing on the board. Central message equals slavery is less significant than the frontier / westward expansion. Amaya's writing. Tyrell has both parts. Possesses adding the /. Excellent. Yeah, I think that's my biggest, not expecting that they can switch, right? And like just assuming that they're going to get there.
Yeah.
And then probably issuing deductions after they're not meeting unclear expectation.
Exactly. So it would sound something like tracking to this, track the screen, add to your notes. Amaya's writing, Gideon's writing my notes. Waken, that's 1. We're copying our page.
Yes.
Copying our notes. Okay. So it's like the full MVP direction with narrate consequence cycle. So you're able to like hold them more clearly because you've given a very specific direction. Okay?
And that economy language is so. Always call me on that. That's something I need pushers on too.
Okay.
Pencils down or pencils up. Tracking the screen. Add to your notes.
Great.
So just get to it.
Yep. So can you synthesize, like, what is the next step here that's going to drive both classroom climate and on-task numbers?
Yeah, MVP narration just super clearly scripted into my lesson plans to ensure that I'm ahead of and seeing when those moments are going to happen, and B, making sure students are super clear about my expectations and what they should be doing, not giving them too much choice so that they can be on task and clearly meet those expectations.
Great.
Yeah.
In terms of like a real-time cue, what's the best way for me to like jump in when they're, or to support you in the MVP narration consequence cycle here?
Yeah, I think like that. This is the narration.
This is yeah, this can be narration or this is narration.
I'll get either one. That's helpful.
Okay.
I do not mind at all. Like, you'd be like, Mr. Miller, I'm unclear on what you want us to be doing right now. Like,
Great.
I actually like that banter in
Great.
class. And it helps, like, show kids that sort of, like, empathetical moment of, like, I make mistakes and I wasn't clear. It's not on you.
Great.
So please feel free to call that.
Great.
Doesn't throw me off at all.
I'll keep doing that, and I think it can sound something like, Mr. Miller, what are we doing with our hands right
Cool.
now? Mr. Miller, what are we doing with our eyes right now? Because I think what specific MVP directions, it's
Yeah.
like hands and eyes,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that's a good push. Hands and eyes.
It's the hands and eyes directions.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am actually coming back in to observe later today and again tomorrow, actually.
Great.
I have like a double follow-up, which I'm psyched on. So I will give you feedback in both of those moments, and we'll chase that down. This week, in terms of like just closing out on data, you
Yeah.
saw it. I want to set a goal with you. Like,
Okay.
what's the goal for next week? Your personal goal to move that number closer to our ceiling goal of 95% on task.
I mean, I'm still seeing posture issues more frequently than I want. I mean, that one's really closer to the goal.
Mm-hmm.
I want that to be automatic in my classroom. It's not, but I just really want to make sure that that's not something that I have to keep saying. They're annoyed by it. I'm annoyed by it. I don't know how we're going to get that to be less, but I think just being really consistent on resetting posture. I've now built that into my directions more often.
Yeah.
So just really driving that posture home, and more and more credit heavy to reaffirm that posture.
I agree. I love that. I would push. I feel like time on task is something we can chase here.
Yeah.
You can keep sweating. I've seen you make traction with posture by
Mhm.
calling for it, narrating, and consequencing. Let's go after time on task.
Great.
It's swallows like more of like what I think that we're working on in terms
Mhm.
of MVP and directions, because when they're off, that's where it's showing up in this data.
Yeah.
3% is one kid. So we're at 86%. What do you think we can do next week for time on task?
Well, I think clarity and MVP in those directions is going to help get kids right on task because they're really clear on what they should be doing. So that'll help reinforce and at least get that one kid on. But I think also just like stressing, doing more with credits around urgency and kids who are like hopping into work so that kids will feel like really wanting to jump to it.
Great. Perfect.
Stay in it. Yeah.
Let's chase 90.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
All right. That's what I got for you, Miller. Do you have anything for me?
Awesome.
Oh, I missed a quick hit.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Just for complete clarity, on long weekends, like 3-day weekends, you got me your plans like Friday,
Yeah.
which is
So it's
awesome.
head down, yeah.
It's incredible.
Mhm.
That's amazing. The deadline will always be that Tuesday end of day.
Oh, okay.
So you rushed, you got it done, which is
Yeah,
excellent.
I mean, they're not 100%, but
So
yeah.
when it's always Tuesday end of day, and you can take that full weekend and enjoy it, and Tuesday end of day is when you submit, and then I'll always give feedback on those like 4-day weeks by a little bit later, but my timeline will be adjusted as well to end of day Thursday so that we can all just
Take that time.
take the time. And
Great.
when that came through on Friday, I was like, you did it!
Yeah, and I mean, like, the only thing was that, they still need some additions and tweaks to them for sure, and I wanted to, like, submit them fully, but at least I'm feeling like,
Great.
a little bit closer.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely doing better in terms of like time management and like allocating myself to tasks. I'm feeling like I'm getting that more under control. I still feel a little. I'm just not pleased with where I'm at. I want it to be tighter by now, but I'm just like, it's just kind of like a process of learning how this flow works, especially in comparison with like TIR changes and all that stuff. So now it's starting to smooth out and streamline, and we'll see. I'm meeting with Caroline today about what that TIR role, maybe putting breath back, whatever that's going to look like. So
Yeah.
I'll have more clarity, and then I'll feel like probably like a real routine can be
Yeah.
established, and like my life gets a little
Yeah.
more set. Which is
Yeah. I think like I've been thinking about you and along with all of the moves of TIRs, and I've been feeling it, and I know for God, I'm thinking about like all of the logistics that go into shifting people around. So
Yeah.
I'm like very appreciative of the flexibility.
Yeah,
You might get Barunthan back on some ELA tasks.
let's do it.
Let's get him up on those
Yes.
ELA tasks.